microphone on. On camera again. Sorry, I'm almost there. Yeah, right. Partial zoom. That should be it. We should be good. Just let me check the audio really quick. When you talk, it will be sure.
Can you hear me? All right, good.
Okay. All right. Part two. Part two.
Woo. All right, I'm back. Hi again. When I flew in yesterday on the plane, my ear closed up, and so I took a lot of Sudafed this morning. And the good news is I can hear out of this mostly. The bad news is I've got the shakes now. So if you see me shaking, it's from the Sudafed. It's not that I'm nervous. Yeah, but mostly my ears reopened, so that's a help. Oh, it's not showing the one we want.
Yeah, I'll fix it really quick.
All right, so I'm going to talk to you about generative AI, which is a lot of what anybody's talking about right now, and the ways that it can really help you in the process of research and knowledge dissemination, and also some ways that it can possibly hurt you. So as soon as I have slides, we'll dive into that. Is it not capturing the screen?
Should be. It's not, but it's set correctly, so I'm trying to figure out why. Oh, I see what it is. Let's put it back on. I can fix it on my end.
Okay.
It should come up in just a second. Let's do this. Almost got it.
Okay. Automatic monitor 2. I'll put it on the extension. That should do it from beginning. No, that didn't do it.
Should
what do you want me to do? Automatic or primary? That's what I just did. It didn't work. Didn't do it.
Shouldn't be on this. Make sure it isn't. I don't know what it's doing right now. Let me check the screen real quick. The previous person had me make a quick change, and that might be what's actually doing it. Do you have notes?
Yeah.
Okay, then I need to leave it on extended.
Yep.
All right, give me a second. I'll figure it out. Yeah, something like that. Okay.
Click the presents. I feel like it should work now. There we go.
Okay, there we go.
Okay.
Sorry.
Do you think we're good, or do you need to do some more testing? We're good? Yep. Okay. Okay. So, I am still Gwen Weerts, as I was before. So I have one foot in the camp of scholarly publishing, which I talked to you a lot about this morning. My other foot is in the camp of science communication. And I'm aware that scholarly publishing and science communication might kind of sound like the same thing. They're not. They're actually quite different things. And we'll get into that in this talk. So while this talk is a lot about how to integrate generative AI into your research workflow, it's also how to become a better science communicator. And like the previous one, I would love for you to interact and talk to me throughout. Okay, so just because I love to kick off a presentation with a bang, we're going to talk about policies. And UC Irvine website has this fantastic page about generative AI and their policies. So I realize most of you aren't even from here, but this is still a useful page for you to check out. I encourage you to scan the QR code. It has some really cool information about the debates surrounding generative AI in research, including How do you give attribution? The possibility of unintentional plagiarism, concerns about intellectual property, ethics. It also has a list of publisher policies on generative AI. SPIE is not on this list. I would love to get on this list, but it does have a whole lot of the major publishers' policies, which is great. It's got some recommended AI writing tools, which actually surprised me. And it's got this very cool guide on Gen AI and information literacy that's worth reading. So just a great resource that I stumbled across when I was prepping for this. So also to note, most of you are aware at this point that the general Gen AI tools like ChatGPT, Gemini, Copilot, they use your queries to further train their models. That shouldn't be a surprise to anyone at this point. What that means is that they can expose your private information to the web. So if you are uploading the abstract of a not yet published paper to ChatGPT, that has just been given to the world. So you need to be very careful about what you're uploading to what. If there's anything that needs to be kept private, make sure that you're using some sort of walled off, closed, or private LLM. Most schools, big schools in the US, are giving students access to Microsoft Copilot with enterprise data protection. Does that sound familiar to any of you in the room? Do you feel like, yes, I probably have this? Some are not sure, some say yes. So if you aren't sure, find out. This is useful. That means that if you're logged into Microsoft Copilot with your 365 account, then all of your queries are encrypted and protected and will not be used to further train models. So if you have a private use case that you need, make sure that you are in some sort of walled off LLM. Okay, so that's the fun stuff out of the way. All right, this is a quote that I think is really great. It's from an article that appeared in Quanta, which if you haven't heard of Quanta, it's like a popular magazine about math. It's great. It started as a fantasy and then a promise, inspired by biology and animated by the ideas of physicists, and grew to become a powerful research tool. Now artificial intelligence has evolved into something else, a junior colleague, a partner in creativity, an impressive, if unreliable, wish-granting genie. It has changed everything, from how we relate to data and truth to how researchers devise experiments and mathematicians think about proofs. AI is changing what it means to do science and math and what it means to be a scientist. And I don't think that is an overstatement. I think the generation of science that you are all growing into is going to be markedly different from that of your advisors. So I'm curious how many people in this room use some sort of Gen AI tool daily? Raise your hands. Maybe like weekly-ish? Okay. Every once in a while? Has anybody had zero curiosity and not even not dived in? This talk may not be interesting to you. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. That's good to know, kind of where you're all at. All right, so we're going to talk specifically about AI in the research process, starting with topic discovery and literature review, and then hopefully you'll all give me some input about how you go about that currently. And then we'll dive into how to appropriately use these tools for writing and publishing a paper, and then the ways that they can really help you with communicating your science. Okay, so this is an article that was published in October 2024. It was a report that came out from a company called Ithaca SNR called A Third Transformation, Generative AI and Scholarly Publishing. What it's talking about here is that the first transformation in scholarly publishing referred to the shift from print to digital. So in the early 2000s, all this printed journal matter was being digitized, and that was huge. That was a big shift. The second transformation had more to do with publishing infrastructure and metadata and the way that articles are structured. Not super important here, but this third transformation is really about generative AI. This report predicted 3 ways that generative AI will significantly alter the research and publication environment. First, by creating these integrated platforms that streamline the research process. We're already seeing this. Enhanced search and discovery, we're definitely seeing that, and improved academic writing was probably the first thing we all noticed. This last point says that Gen AI will accelerate research and could potentially catalyze substantive changes to the nature of research and knowledge creation. Well, what do they mean by that? Well, during the first transformation from print to digital, Nothing really majorly changed in publishing. It was just an electronic version of what was already there. It was basically the same system and the same process. But Gen AI will or possibly already has foundationally changed the way that you can discover information and organize it, publish it, and peer review it, and finally access it. The whole system is changing as a result. I gave this talk just 9 months ago to a group similar to this in Auckland, New Zealand. And at that time, I said, yeah, this is right on the horizon. This is about to happen. And I had to redo a significant portion of this talk 9 months later because we're already here. So much has happened in such a short period of time. So to keep you guessing where I'm going, and because I love a good non sequitur, we are going to talk about my dog. This is Sprocket. So Sprocket is a Springer Spaniel mix. He's a total doofus. He's really cute, but he's real dumb. And he's got he's really overeager. So if I say Sprocket, come here, he's the dog who will slide across the floor and trying to get there. He is vastly overconfident. He will try to chase and catch bunnies. He has no hope of ever catching. He trusts and loves everything. He is just every person and animal and dog and cat he meets is just the best friend he's never met before. So if generative AI had a mascot, it would be my dog, Sprocket. So what I mean by that, overeager. Generative AI frequently exceeds the parameters of your query. We were talking about that just before lunch. That you give it a command, you ask it to do a thing, and it will do that, and then some. You say, write me an outline, and it says, how about I just write that for you? No, it's not what I wanted. So trust and love. So my dog sees the best in you, and so does generative AI. Gen AI has a pretty severe positivity bias, right? It's like the dog licking your hand, telling you that you're amazing, your work is all really good, your ideas are all fantastic, and you have to be aware of that when you're using these tools. And as for overconfident, I'm referring to hallucinations, that we all know that especially the general AI tools, they do hallucinate, they do make things up, and they will present that non-factual information with the same detached tone, the same detached factual tone as correct information. And so that makes it really hard to tell the difference. Bennett Landman is the editor-in-chief of...
Can I interrupt?
Oh, yeah,
Can you
yeah,
go back
sure.
to that slide?
Yeah, yeah.
So is the previous slide? So are some of these characteristics ingrained in the technology of Gen AI, or is it the design of the Gen AI tools that have led to these characteristics?
Yeah, I think that these here I'm talking really specifically about the general ones. So Copilot, Gemini, ChatGPT, Perplexity, ones that have the ability to exercise creativity. There are some specialized tools that I think have been designed to eliminate some of these problems, which I'll talk about shortly. So I think, yes, they were designed this way because these features make people want to interact with them. And then I think the way that we interact with them is further reinforced these issues.
Okay, so you feel that these characteristics were intentional by the designers?
Yeah.
In order to propagate the tool,
Yeah.
as opposed to you can actually, in a way, design a Gen AI tool that actually doesn't have these
Right.
characteristics.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's a marketing or a profit motive
Oh, I would think so. Yeah.
for these characteristics.
Yeah, I think especially the
Okay.
positivity bias issue.
Okay.
If you want critical feedback on an idea, you have to tell your AI tool to be critical. And even then it's going to like pat it really nicely for you. Yeah. All right, so Bennett Landman is the editor-in-chief of the Journal of Medical Imaging. He's a really clever guy. And he said that ChatGPT is very good at talking to us like a trusted friend, but it doesn't have any social constructs that make it know that it's our trusted friend. And what that just means is that ChatGPT, all these LLMs are tools. They don't have a moral compass. So just like any other tool, they're in the hands of their user. So it's up to their operator to provide that moral compass. They can be abused or misused just like just about any other tool out there. So we all have an ethical obligation to learn how to use these appropriately. And is it going? Okay, so we'll talk about some specialized AI tools for information discovery. And I think this is one of the fastest moving areas. It's developed a lot just in the past few months. There's a lot of new things out there. So right now, if you are researching a topic, you need to conduct a literature search. What do you do? Yeah. In general, like if you need to start reviewing the literature and pulling together your relevant research, your relevant references, how do you do it? Mm-hmm. Your keywords. Mm-hmm. Any others? Yeah. Mm-hmm. That they've cited. Yeah. Yeah. Looking at the network.
I was gonna say that too, like starting with relevant review papers in the field and then like looking at the stuff they're citing.
Yeah. Has anybody played around with any of these dedicated information discovery AI tools? Bernard has?
No, I've tried Cite.ai and Research Rabbit.
Yep. Good. I'm going to talk about both of those.
So Cite.ai, there's an assistant on there that you can basically, you type in a query. And it could be a statement or it could be a actual question, and then it just does a whole bunch of searches. Like, and it tells you what searches there are, and then it will give you basically, and it'll give you a summary with different references. You click on the reference, it'll show you where it excerpted the information from. So sometimes it's from something that is actually, makes sense, and sometimes it's from things that it's just from the abstract and they just cited another paper sort of thing. So there's no, and it's not necessarily from that paper. So, but it does give a starting point. So
Yeah.
it's up to I think for a lot of these things, it's up to the end user to then vet it.
Yeah. Yes. So you've pretty much given the first part of my talk 100%. These are great tools and you have to vet them.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
But it's pretty cool.
It is. There's some really great ones out there. So I think what I really want to emphasize is that the general tools like Gemini, Copilot, ChatGPT, these general LLMs, they're great at broad knowledge. They're very creative. They are prone to hallucination and they do suffer from that positivity bias. But there are these specialized research AI tools that are coming out really rapidly. And they have this academic focus. They're data driven. They are highly accurate. They have a very low hallucination rate. And if you're going to start using Gen AI tools for information discovery, I really beg you to use these tools and not those tools. You will get accurate results from the ones on the left. You will get inaccurate results from the ones on the right. Okay. So in choosing what tools you want to use, there are already a dozen out there, dozens, and there will be more and more every week. So when you need to pick which tool is going to be most helpful to you, you need to consider what is your greatest pain point and find the tool that will best address that pain point. So if you're struggling to keep up with the flood of new literature, then that's your pain point. Maybe you've got a stack of 50 papers and you're wondering, geez, how do I figure out what the commonalities are? What's been done? What do they have in common? Synthesizing findings can be really hard to do manually. If you're trying to find a specific data point out of one paper, that's a whole other problem. If you want to visualize relationships between papers, that's a thing. So figure out what is your pain point and then figure out which tool would best serve you regularly to help you get past that pain point. So I'm going to talk about some very specific software. Most of it's quite new, not all of it, that can help you with these tasks, and I've categorized them a bit. So the first category are tools that help with automated literature synthesis and data extraction. So the tools in category A can process a large body of work and synthesize their findings, extract specific data points, and identify patterns or comparisons between those papers. They're very robust. So if you've got, they can help you find sort of research gaps and understand state of the art across a really broad area. So if you can think about it as having an AI read through a large stack of papers and create a structured review or a comparison matrix between all those papers that give you an idea what those papers say collectively about a question or a variable. So key questions these tools answer are things like, what does the collective body of literature say about X? Or how do these 10 studies compare on variable Y? Or what are the common methodologies used for the? So these tools are really good at that. I've just listed 3 here. There's more than 3 that do this, but these are 3 really cool ones. I've used all of these and I can recommend all of them. They also all have freemium models, so you can try them out and see what you think. The first one is Elicit, which has actually been around way longer than most generative AI companies. They've been doing this for 6 years maybe. So they're kind of the most established. Elicit is a very cool tool. They build these these tables that compare papers and summarize findings across a set of results. So you ask it your research question, it gives you 15, 20 papers relevant to that question, and then it puts in columns the methodologies of that paper, the results of that paper, the limitations of that paper. And so you can actually read and compare those papers in a grid-like format. It's very rad. Consensus has some similarities. It works at showing you what is the consensus between a body of literature on a specific topic. It synthesizes answers to your research questions from the literature. I met the co-founders of Consensus a few months ago, and they said that their goal is to replace Google Scholar as the primary research tool. I think that's a possibility. I was actually, when I asked you all what method you use to find papers, I was expecting more people to say they were using these tools, and I think we'll get to a tipping point in the fairly near future where these are the common answers instead of Google Scholar. I think that if I give this talk a year from now, this will be what people say rather than Google Scholar, but we'll see.
That's the only one I've tried.
Which one? Consensus? Okay, cool. What did you think?
I like it.
Yeah.
It's good. I actually use it to find papers.
Yes.
I don't use it necessarily to get the direct answer.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yep. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. But they're trained on the Semantic Scholar database. So they're trained on peer-reviewed literature.
It's just really good at searching online.
Very good. Yeah.
If you type in a question, it can search it rather than having to focus on the keywords as a.
Yeah, exactly.
But
It's
it
yeah,
gets
it's
better
semantic
over
search.
time.
Yeah, exactly.
And these, you have to have a license for this.
They all have freemium models, and then if you love one, you can pay $15, $20 a month to use them.
You got one
In depth.
Of the Consensus.
I actually have a coupon code for all of you for the premium version of Consensus. So if you want to try it, you can. Yeah, I will give that to you in a later slide. But it's you can get a free year of premium on that one. SciSpace, I've heard some people in your community have used. I'm less familiar with it. It covers a lot of different tools. So not only that consensus building and synthesis of information, but also extracting data from individual PDFs. So these are 3 really good tools that you can explore and check out for information synthesis. The next category is research network mapping, which helps you to visualize connections between papers and authors and concepts. And this gets into the tools that Bernard was talking about. So category B tools, these help you to identify and understand the relationships, the influence, the intellectual landscape of a research field by seeing how papers and authors connect to one another. So if you know that you are a visual learner, you will probably love tools like this. Research Rabbit, like if you like node link or network diagrams, that's something Research Rabbit's really good at. It shows both the forward citations and the backward citations for a particular paper, papers that were cited together, authors who frequently work together. It shows that all to you in a visual map. And then Cite AI allows you to enter the DOI of a published paper, and it will give you a list of how all the other papers that cite it use it. So not just the papers, not just a list of papers that cite it, but how they cite it, which is important because if a paper is cited 100 times and 90 of those citations are saying this was not a valid paper, that is really good context to know, right? So, so it's interesting in that way. You can think of Research Rabbit as like a GPS or like Google Maps that shows you all the intersecting roads of a region, and Cite AI is more like all the restaurant reviews for a specific town that tells you how people are talking about that restaurant and which parts are well supported and where they got food poisoning. So that's how those work. And then you've got your category C tools, which are more like deep dive tools. So enhanced academic search and PDF interaction. So you can think of these as an upgraded search engine combined with AI-powered readers for PDFs. These help you to locate the right documents and then quickly get the information that you need out of them. So category C, these are the tools that help you answer questions like, where do I find papers on X? Or what is this specific paper about? Summarize it for me. What did the author say about Y in this article? So category C tools help you identify and digest those sources. They help you to find the needle in the haystack. They can help you do a deep dive into a really dense paper with very little effort, which can be really helpful. I do think that general tools like Gemini, ChatGPT, Copilot, Claude actually do a good job of interacting with PDFs by themselves. I don't know that you necessarily need a dedicated tool for chatting with a PDF. But they won't be as good at this really deep academic search due to the knowledge cutoff dates of general tools, and also due to the fact that they're trained on all of the internet and not just on scholarly literature. So Copilot cannot distinguish between peer-reviewed papers and proceedings papers, or between peer-reviewed papers in a scam journal and peer-reviewed papers in a legitimate journal. So be really cautious, or just don't use general GPTs for scholarly searches. And then, oh yeah, so these are the ones that I was going to recommend. So Perplexity AI, it's like a really robust Copilot for researchers. It's really good at brainstorming with you, but it sticks to the scholarly record. And then Scholarly and Chat PDF are good at summarizing papers and extracting core components from it. So those are just a few suggestions. Yeah.
So like, so a lot of these models will be like specific only.
Yes.
And so like, they have to be like manually prevented from like finding papers that are from STEM journals. Like how is that done? Like,
Yeah, so they're walled off. So they're trained on bodies of knowledge, and journals have to be vetted and approved to be indexed in these databases. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah.
so then why does ChatGPT, or I guess any of the other general ones, completely make up papers?
Yeah, I don't know.
It'll just make up a citation
Oh.
that's not real, like you go to search for the paper.
Yeah.
It doesn't make it.
Yeah, and as a publisher, I see that a lot, where a DOI doesn't resolve for a paper and we dig into it, and it's authors and a title and a DOI that like doesn't exist. It looks like a reference, but it's not real. I don't know why it does it. I don't write the algorithms, but
I'm just
yeah.
surprised that there's these other algorithms that are good at that.
Yeah.
Finding the exact papers that are really relevant, and then that one just can't even give you a paper.
Yeah.
Can't even give you one. It
Right.
just gives you a fake citation.
Yeah, and I think that really comes down to the tool's purpose, that the general LLMs are really good at creativity, and they've been optimized for creativity. So they are exactly, and that's what they're doing, right? So so that's what you should use them for, is tasks that you need to brainstorm, you need creative thinking. But if you need specific information, they are not your best tool for that. These tools are way better. And then the final category are lateral search tools, which are not general AI tools. These are just some tools that I think are much more robust than searching via Google Scholar, and are really good to conduct search in parallel. Do you want me to wait to move on, Hassan? Oh yeah, okay. Yeah.
Do you know how far back these specific research-focused generative AI tools are trained on? Like how far back in, like what is the extent of the data that it's being trained on, specifically like the papers that it's being trained on?
That's a good question.
And also, like, how does it update with,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
are the newest papers going to be
Yeah.
like referenced by the
Right. Yeah, they
language models?
update on I think a daily basis.
Okay. Wow.
So I mean, this is their whole business model, is
Yeah.
the scholarly record. So they're really keen to be up to date. So as soon as the Semantic Scholar database, or OpenAlex, that's another common one that's used, as soon as it digests new research input, these algorithms update as well to include it. What was the first part of your question?
Like how far back
Oh,
in?
that, I'm not sure. I think that they include the whole of the digitized scholarly record, I believe. But the good tools, I know Consensus says explicitly on their site, like, well, what is this? What are you searching? And it'll tell you exactly what will be included. So if it's a trustworthy tool, they'll be very transparent about what you can expect to
Thank
see in
you.
the results. Yeah.
One other question.
Yeah.
How have you seen the uptake of these tools by academic institutions, meaning buying site licenses for, like, I don't know if UCI, for instance, or other major
Yeah.
university campuses are starting to actually buy site
Yeah.
licenses for these.
I haven't seen that yet. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, Dimensions is a great tool. It's really expensive, but it is a really great search tool. Yeah, I haven't started to see that sort of institutional support for these yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if we start to see it in the future, because they do such a good job. up there, what they're designed to do. Yeah.
Like, is there like an ethical consideration in like using AI in writing papers? Like,
In writing papers?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm going to talk about that next. So I'm going to put a pin in that. There definitely is. So the main thing I want to wrap up this search topic is that there are these more traditional search engines. Lens.org and Dimensions are they're not generative AI databases. They're more conventional search. Dimensions uses traditional Boolean search, and it's very robust. It's got some really cool built-in visualizations. There is a freemium version that you can get some basic information out of. So I recommend that. Lens.org is also free. The cool thing about lens.org is that it includes gray literature, which is things like patents and clinical trials and dissertations and some technical literature. So tools that are trained on Semantic Scholar won't include gray literature. So that's a kind of cool reason to do a parallel search on non-generative AI tools like Lens, like Dimensions, to validate your results and make sure that what you're getting is really appropriate for your topic. So always recommend doing a lateral search. And of course, the importance of keeping the human in the loop. So AI tools are powerful assistants. They are not autonomous researchers yet. Every AI-generated insight and summary or extracted data point really does need to be verified by you. Hallucinations are greatly reduced in the tools that I just mentioned, but they are not eliminated. So just remember that AI helps to reduce some of the drudgery, but it doesn't replace the thinking. Don't ever let it replace the thinking. That truly higher order thinking, interpreting the findings and finding the novel insights and creating arguments, that is still fully within the human realm. And ultimately, remember that you, the researcher, bear responsibility for what ends up in your paper. So if a reviewer finds that there's a hallucinated reference that we just talked about, or the remnant of a ChatGPT query in your paper, and notes it in their review, Bernard, if you get that as an AE, what is your response?
Wouldn't be very kind.
It would not be kind. It would not be kind. No. So yeah, you're ultimately.
But one thing I'm very concerned about, I guess you mentioned these tools that actually query the broad literature and then arrives at a consensus.
Yeah.
And so the question then is, how strong is the inference they're making?
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is that, you may arrive at a consensus, or there's some judgment that they use to come to those conclusions, and they could be erroneous. And the only way you could figure that out is by reading all the 40 papers or whatever that they use to come up with that conclusion.
Yeah, totally. I'm going to demo one right now, and we can test it, and we can stress test the product. This is so this is consensus. This is the promo code SPIE 100. You can get a free year of premium using that code. You do have to enter your credit card, so they will charge you after a year. So set yourself a reminder if you don't actually want to pay for it a year from the starting date, because I will not reimburse you if that actually happens. So, but there you go. There's a product code. So this is my test prompt for consensus. So I asked it, identify current research trends and optical methods for early cancer detection in biological tissue, focusing on spectroscopic techniques, imaging modalities, physiological or optical biomarkers, commonalities and methodologies, and then pinpoint research gaps, highlighting areas that are under-researched based on cancer type, or lacking robust clinical validation, or facing challenges in translation. So that's my query. It's pretty involved. And let us hope that this is actually going to work here. Okay, so here's my querying consensus. I did preload this. The black text is, if I can get there we go. Okay, the black text is the query. So I'll just scroll down. So consensus has these 3 different modes. They've got their quick, their pro, and then their really in-depth systematic review response. So this is the quick version of summary. Can you read that? It's a little broken up. Yeah, let's see. Okay. Better? Okay. even if you haven't totally finished it. I think it gets across the idea. So I don't work in this area. I don't know for sure, but this seems like a fairly good high level overview to me on this topic. And then scrolling down, you can see all the references that were mentioned in the consensus summary at the top. And these do look like the appropriate references for this topic. I recognize all these publications. They have recency. They are the people you would expect to be publishing in this field. So that's the breakdown. So that's the quick version. And then consensus has this premium version where they go into a little more depth, breaking it down. And so they've broken down the various emerging spectroscopic techniques and the novel imaging modalities. And they break it down this way and then helpfully point out the most significant research gaps here, which might give you some ideas for future projects. And then the in-depth version, which is newly released, they basically write a literature review on the topic. And it took about 10 minutes to produce. But based on my query, it wrote this paper on current research trends and gaps in optical methods for early cancer detection in biological tissues, including the methods that it used to select the papers that it selected, its search strategy to identify. So it's telling you how it searched for the papers that it searched for, the results that it found. Okay. All the papers, a highlight of key papers with a more extensive reference list at the bottom. And then the top contributors in this topic, top journals publishing on this topic, and claims and evidence table, which is interesting. And then in this cool table that shows you the research gaps. So you can tell sort of at a visual level, the areas that are maybe underserved or under-researched. Yeah, what do you think? Yeah.
Earlier today, you were talking more about like publishing
Yeah.
in academic journals, and kind of looking through this, I'm seeing that there, this has access to all of, all of those articles. And
Yeah.
one of the ones that I saw, for example, was like Frontiers, which you were like, don't
Yeah.
go, got it. But yeah, I guess I'm wondering about the relationship between like consensus and like Elsevier, for example. Like, do
Like
you
what?
like Elsevier?
Oh, Elsevier?
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
like,
Yeah.
or Wiley or something like that. Like, how long will they be okay with something like consensus using their, like using all of those publications? Because at this point, I mean, I get that, like, you need to verify and like read all of your papers and stuff like that. But it seems like, do you really need all of that access to Elsevier and Wiley and all of these like paywalled publications if you have something like this that is like reading it for you, disseminating that information for you, and you can like, like, I don't know, like,
Yeah, you're asking the question. That's the question of the day.
Okay.
Yeah. So when I put on my like science enthusiasm hat, I'm like, oh, these tools are fantastic. They're transforming science. I put on my publisher hat and I say, oh my gosh, I'm going to be out of a job in 3 years. Like, yeah, it's yeah, they're both and. So I don't have a good answer right now. They are trained on literature that's open access, which we talked about. So if it's open access, then they're using the full paper to train on. For literature that's not open access, that's behind a paywall, they are training on only the metadata. So just the abstract title authors. So there's that to know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That was, I guess, part of my question, but maybe I didn't. I was thinking that even if it was paywalled, they were using it. So consensus doesn't necessarily have access.
They don't have full text access to paywalled content.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. That's pretty important.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
So seems to be an interesting intersection between your first talk and this talk, in that if they're primarily basing conclusions on the open literature, and you at the same time you have a lot of these new journals that are predatory, that are flooding with tons of papers, do these tools now become biased because there's probably more of that stuff out there than maybe the more rigorous scholarly based material.
Possibly. I think that's a concern in a lot of ways, especially with like citation cartels, which are a group of 1,000 people. So it's almost impossible to detect, but there's 1,000 people on a list who all agree to cite each other. And so they end up with these really artificially inflated H indexes. And that's a real thing that's happening. And so it makes it seem like the person is a prolific researcher when they're not. They've just paid a lot of money to get cited. And so that sort of those sort of integrity issues absolutely are negatively impacting these algorithms because they can't tell the difference between somebody with legitimate citations and not. So that's why it is really important to do lateral search on non-AI tools to verify your results.
At least with consensus, it gives you the citation and you can go then
Yes.
see where it came from
Yep.
and then see what journal it was from, because like you still wouldn't be able to access it if your institution doesn't have
Right.
access.
Right.
But I guess that's a really interesting question, because would it be more biased to the ones that are just publicly available?
Right.
Like pulling those first, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah.
Just 'cause it has
It's a
the whole
question.
text instead of just-
Yeah. Yeah. It's a good question. I was at a publishing conference in May and they were saying SEO is dead. Don't worry about SEO. Everybody needs to be talking about how to optimize for chatbots. It's all that matters at this point. So, how do you get your content picked up by a chatbot? So it's a totally new world. We're all figuring it out. So I would have loved to do a demo of every one of these tools because they're all very cool in different ways. Oh, I need to get my screen back up somehow. I think if I just click on, okay, got it. Okay, this guy, Dr. Andy Stapleton, he's a trip. So he has a PhD in OPVs, organic photovoltaics. He is now a full-time YouTuber, which maybe tells you don't go into OPVs. But he he has this YouTube channel where he reviews and ranks all these various Gen AI tools for researchers. And there are so many. So if you want to know more about what's out there, the ones that are the best for whatever problems you might be facing, check out his channel. He does get really enthusiastic about some that I cannot recommend. Like he had one, you're probably aware of Sci-Hub. It is illegal piracy of published material. And he raves about how great Sci-Hub is. So take everything with a grain of salt. But his YouTube channel is a trip and he's great at reviewing these products. Okay, I'm going to move on to writing and publishing unless anybody else wants to keep talking about search tools. Are we good? Okay. So when you're ready to start writing a paper, what is your process now? How do you get started? Anyone? What's your first step? Outline? Does anybody start with figures? Great. Figures. Great. Good. Yes. Figures and captions. Storyboard with your figures. That's good. It's good to hear. That is the best place to start. There are increasingly many AI writing tools out there, specifically for researchers. I don't really recommend them. I'm not going to review them here like I just did those. First of all, AI writing is usually pretty vapid, a lot like my dog. And let's see, I accidentally moved past it. I need to get my cursor back. Okay, yeah, so there are these AI detection tools out there that are screening for AI text. They're not great at it, but actually humans are getting pretty good at recognizing it. There's this sort of bland perfection to AI writing that humans are getting pretty good at saying that was probably AI. But there are other reasons not to let it write for you. One is that it is risky. No peer-reviewed journals allow AI to be an author on the journal, and so you don't want to get accused of letting AI write your paper. It is an ethical violation. And also, generative AI can plagiarize without telling you that it did that. So that is a real risk. But then third, and I think this is maybe the most important, is that we use technology to take shortcuts, but we need to be strategic about the shortcuts we take. So your first draft is your thinking draft. Don't outsource your thinking. This is a quote from one of my favorite writers. Her name's Anne Hadley. The writing process is very deeply tied to learning. And so if you outsource that process, you skip the internalization of that knowledge. So when you write, it requires you to organize your thoughts, organize your data, make it all coherent, not just on the page, but also in your brain. So it is a really important step that I really, really suggest that everybody always keeps the writing process fully human so that you don't outsource your thinking. Okay, but there are ways that Gen AI can still be helpful in writing without actually writing for you. And so here's some ideas. Research papers, most of them follow the IMRAD formula, you know that. Each of those sections is like its own little mini article that has its own specific conventions within that section. So Gen AI can really help you to get the content of each section right the first time. So here's an example of how you might use Gen AI in the writing process without actually asking it to write for you. Here's a sample query. So in a research paper, describe to me the conventions that are expected to be included in the method section of the paper. Focus your reply in the method section, be as specific as possible. This query in Copilot yielded a really clear checklist of things that should be included, like study design, participants and subjects, materials and instruments, procedures, data collection, data analysis, reproducibility, transparency, all the things you would expect to be in a method section, and can be a useful way to organize just that one section to make sure you don't miss anything. And you can approach every section of your paper this way. It's interesting to note the last line of Copilot's response to this query was, would you like an example of a well-written method section from a published paper, or help drafting one for a specific study? No, puppy dog, no, I do not. I don't want that. Naughty, don't do that. Yeah, it always tries to exceed your search, the parameters of your search. And then editing. We know that Gen AI really excels at editing. It's one of the first things we all noticed about these tools is, wow, it can take something that I said really poorly and turned it into a really intelligent sounding sentence. It's really great, especially for non-native English speakers. I think these tools have a lot of democratizing properties. Scholarly research is published in English. A lot of the world doesn't speak English. And so it's really great that these tools are available to help level the playing field linguistically. So I think they're a huge benefit in that way. There are a lot of tools dedicated to helping with academic writing. And do you use Grammarly? Many people use Grammarly. A lot. It's one of the most common ones. PaperPal is also really popular. It's got some really robust features. Writeful is another one. But I really encourage you to draw a line in the sand between writing and editing. And again, because these tools are really overeager, they will always try to cross that line into writing, and it's up to you to really keep that line drawn. And this is really where the way that you word your prompt matters a lot. So if you're using Copilot or some sort of general purpose tool and you give it the prompt, edit my paper to clean up the language and grammar, that could be interpreted by the AI to simply rewrite it for you. So there was a recent article published by Bloomberg that found that using Grammarly with the prompt improve the language and make it sound academic. It turned a 100% human written article into one that was detected to be 100% written by ChatGPT, just from this like cleanup command. So it's something you need to be really careful about. So instead, be really specific about the type of editing you want. Approach the process like a private lesson with the nicest writing teacher you'll ever have. So for example, my introduction is copied below. Review it for grammar, spelling, punctuation errors. Ensure the writing style is clear, concise, maintains an academic tone. List specific actionable edits one by one with an explanation of why the edit is an improvement. Do not rewrite the paragraphs. It's still going to offer to rewrite them for you, but tell it not to. Yeah, so Gen AI detection tools are unreliable, but publishers and professors still use them anyway, and you don't want your work to get flagged for that. So don't give your editing tool too much free rein. And also by reviewing suggestions for edits individually, you actually become a better writer. So this is a really great learning tool. It's a way to use editing features without letting them get carried away with the task. Okay, so when it comes to Gen AI, when you're writing a manuscript, there are some firm do's and don'ts. First, do clearly acknowledge any and all AI tools in your paper. So if you used any sort of AI tool for editing or clarity, say so in the acknowledgement section. I think it is known widely that everybody's using these tools. I can tell you they are rarely disclosed for as often as I know that they're being used. It just needs to be destigmatized. Be transparent about your use of the tools. If you used it for editing, put it in your acknowledgements. If you used a tool for data synthesis, put that in the methods. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, any use of it, just disclose it. Yeah, there isn't, the penalty is for using it and getting caught and not for using it and disclosing it. And then also check your paper for plagiarism. Now, I hope that you haven't actually used it to write your paper, but if you did, you need to be really careful that it didn't just plagiarize for you. So run your paper through Authenticate or through, what are the other ones? I know Grammarly has, I know Grammarly has a plagiarism detection feature built in. Turnitin, I think that's the one that schools often use. So do check, make sure that it didn't plagiarize somebody without you knowing it, or misattribute text to the wrong person or to the wrong paper. Yeah.
Do you know of any free tools for that? Because when I was in high school, you used to be able to do Turnitin draft check before you actually submitted it. But then now they don't allow you to do that anymore. When you submit through like Canvas or whatever, it automatically does the plagiarism check, and you can't change it.
Oh.
You can't go back and go and review it before.
Yeah.
To even see if there's any discrepancies prior.
Yeah.
So, and then also Grammarly, I think you have to pay for that feature.
That's the thing. It's fast
I don't know
moving.
of any free tools, because that's something like with AI, and also just when you're synthesizing so many papers, it's very easy to just like miss a sentence.
Yeah.
And I don't know, that's just something that I would love to have access to if you.
Yeah. A lot of the ones that used to be free no longer are, like Grammarly. PaperPal, I think, has that feature in its freemium version that you can use once or twice before you have to pay. And I thought a lot of schools actually gave students access to Turnitin, but maybe not.
It's like built in, at least for us, it's built into Canvas, so anytime
Okay.
you submit an assignment
Okay.
that's like a writing base,
Yeah.
it automatically does it.
I see,
And so,
but not for your pre-screen.
so then every time if you resubmit or if someone else in your group submits the same thing because y'all are in the same group, it'll just say it's plagiarized because
Right.
it doesn't let you like select which draft you're
Yeah.
submitting, and then it compares those.
Right.
to each other, so.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. So I don't have an easy answer about free software, but you might, but if you're not writing with AI, it shouldn't be a problem, right? So don't copy and paste text, don't write with AI. Plagiarism should not be a problem. Yeah, and then of course verify all AI responses for accuracy, which I've tried to emphasize. Okay, the don'ts. All reputable journals have policies against AI authorship. It violates the policies of authorship set forth by COPE, which is the Council on Publication Ethics. The reason being, an author must be able to take responsibility for the content of paper, and of course, ChatGPT cannot do that. Second, do not rely solely on AI to write. Use your own words. Generated text could be detected. It might even be plagiarized. Do not use AI to fabricate data. I think like that's obvious. I shouldn't have to say it, but I'm putting it on there. Don't use AI to write your introduction. Okay, so I just talked about how great it is at synthesizing, and you might think, I mean, it's so easy. Like it would just write an introduction for me, and it would just summarize everything I've already done and lead right into my paper. It can. Still don't do it. You don't want it to get detected, and the introduction is what sets up your paper. It's really important context for your work, so write it yourself. And then likewise, don't use AI to write your cover letter for the same reason you shouldn't use AI to write a cover letter for a job. People notice that. They can tell. It's your opportunity to personalize it to a specific journal, to a specific editor. Don't let it be bland and dismissible as it would be if it's written by AI. So those are my comments about writing and editing. Any other discussion topics on that? What's okay, what's not? I think this is also rapidly changing. What is okay today or not okay today might be a year from now. So we'll see. Okay. So submitting the paper can also really help you to submit your paper, to choose the right journal, and to prepare a manuscript for submission. So AI tools, if you give them sufficient context, can suggest journals based on criteria. So this is a query that I input the abstract of a paper that I wanted to submit for publication, and I asked it to identify a few journals that would be appropriate that meet these criteria: reputable, gold open access, nonprofit, impact factor between 3 to 5. It did a pretty good job But the first result it came back with was an MDPI journal, which is not reputable and not a nonprofit. So again, it did hallucinate. You always have to check your results. I'm happy to report I did repeat this exact same query using an abstract from a JBO paper that was published by Vasan, and Copilot came back and said, yes, JBO is the best fit for that journal. So I'm like, well, that's good. That worked out. Would have been embarrassing if it wasn't. And then also, I talked a lot about author guidelines and what a pain it is to go through all that information. GenAI can help you with this. So attach your manuscript using something walled off, secure, not a general LLM, and ask it to compare your manuscript to the author guidelines of your specific journal and give it the URL and point out areas that your manuscript does not conform. You'll probably get some false positives, some things that it gets wrong and doesn't read right, but you'll probably find some good gems that you missed too. So this is a way to really expedite that whole author guidelines review process, which can be pretty laborious, especially if you end up having to submit the same paper to multiple journals. Okay, so that's my writing and publishing segment. All right. Trying to get us back on schedule, so I'm kind of tearing through here. Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe this question goes for like the other side of the publication process, which is the reviewing part, let's say. So I understand that journals use tools to identify when AI is used for preparing or writing a paper. So who are in charge of using these tools in the evaluation process of the paper? Is it the editors, the reviewers, or?
It's the staff. It's the journal staff.
Okay.
Yeah.
And are there any specific, I don't know, AI tools that you know that are used for those purposes?
Yes, I would say our team uses a suite of tools, and 3 of the tools that we use have this AI text detection feature built in. When we get a flag that says it has contains generated AI text, we mostly disregard it because it's just too unreliable. So it kind of comes down to the publisher. Like, so we do have a flag for that. We don't trust it enough to actually take action on it. If there's a flag for that plus fabricated references plus citation cartel activity, then that might be like one piece of information that we add in to all the others. But if that's the only flag, then we ignore it anymore. So I can't speak for other publishers there. Yeah. So communicating your science, this is the fun part. All right, so as the editor-in-chief of SPIE Society Magazine, Photonics Focus, science communication is something that I care very deeply about. Most of your journal papers are only going to be read by a handful of people, and that includes the reviewers and the editor who handled your paper. But science communication extends your reach far beyond your community of peers. So you can think of scholarly publishing, your audience is other researchers. But science communication involves translating your work to all these different audiences who may or may not have the same scientific background as you. Science communication has to be really tailored to these different audiences. So peers, you might be talking about peer-to-peer communication like your department newsletter. So that might you might choose to emphasize your methodology there and your results and any future work that you're planning on. Communication to funders is going to really highlight significance and innovation, impact, and communication with industry should really focus on practical application. They don't really care about theory. And then media, you might think, oh, I'm never going to talk to the media about my work. You might be wrong. So it is important to learn to summarize your research into terms that lay people can understand. Scientists are usually really good at writing academic papers, but when you talk to someone like me for a magazine like Photonics Focus, they're usually really terrible at actually explaining it to me. So this is a place where GenAI is super helpful and can really help you to get your work out there. So learning how to summarize your work in layperson terms, both verbally and in writing, is useful. This slide gives some examples about media that you might encounter. PR departments, I encourage every time you publish a paper to send it to your PR department. They may or may not do anything with it, but if you don't send it to them, they definitely won't do anything with it. So write a layperson summary that explains the significance of your work, send it to the PR department, and they might distribute it onto a press release platform, which is how it gets picked up on various online science news sources like these, sciencedaily.com, sciencenews.org. And those websites are how science magazines like mine find research. So if you don't send it here, it's never going to get here and it's never going to get into a magazine. So disseminate broadly, you never know who's going to pick it up. And then, of course, social media, LinkedIn, Blue Sky, Reddit, Threads, whatever is your platform. Ask ChatGPT to help you condense your work into a segment that is appropriate for that platform and promote it. It's really important, and ChatGPT makes it super easy. So for article summaries, these are the first step of science communication. I used to teach a whole workshop that was just on writing non-technical layperson summaries of research. That is totally unnecessary now because Copilot will do it for you in about 30 seconds, which is great. That's a perfect use for it. It's really easy and there's just no reason not to take this step. So an effective article summary follows the same IMRAD formula. For example, if your research is on optical power transmission, you'd state the highest level problem that you're trying to solve. So it would be something like, you need to deliver power to a remote location. Then you would review the dominant methods currently used to solve that problem, which would be things like probably setting up photovoltaic panels, arrays somewhere, but maybe you don't have time or the shipment didn't arrive or didn't make it to the location. So then you state the main thesis of your paper. You're working on how to convert electrical energy to optical energy back to electrical energy. And then you state your findings. And this is the small piece of the process that you figured out that will help reach that higher goal. And then you add a quote, either from yourself or from the AE who accepted your paper. And then you close with some potential applications for your work. And this is what makes your reader feel really invested. It grounds them. In this scenario, you might talk about possible applications in remote military operations for optical power transmission. So that's the basic structure of an article summary. If you give this summary, this structure to Copilot or GPT and upload your paper, it will come back to you with a really well-written summary that you only have to lightly edit. It'll be 90% of the way there. Send it to your PR department and ask them if they want to disseminate it. Okay, the don'ts. Okay, the do's are do write for a specific audience, the tone that you take for your peers, for industry, for funders. They are all different tones, but again, generative AI is really good at adjusting your audience, so you really only have to do it once and then ask it to adjust the output for different audiences. Keep it casual. Academic writing is pretty formal and stiff, but non-technical summaries should be really easy to skim, conversational in tone, and also be really specific. So be careful about generalizations like significant gains. Be specific about what you've actually contributed to this body of knowledge. Use metaphors to help give it meaning. And then don't, when you're writing a research summary, do not exaggerate. It is unethical to do that. You will lose credibility and attract the wrong kind of online attention if you make too much of what you've published. Don't use jargon. So this is one's hard to avoid. People who are in the field tend to think everybody knows what I'm talking about when I talk in acronyms. They don't. So consider, does a person with a master's degree in science know what I'm talking about? A different branch of science. Will they know? If they don't, then you need to spell it out and use a different term. And also don't get into the weeds. So when you're communicating your science to funders, to industry, we were talking earlier about Colgate, your boss at Colgate, that being able to talk about the impact of your work to them, just don't get in the weeds. Keep it as high level as you can. It's not the right place to talk about your experimental setup or your data sets. So those are my don'ts. So here's an example of a query that you could use to prompt Copilot to write an article summary for you. Again, be really specific about what it should not do. If you tell it to include a quote, it will make up a quote for you, of course. So you need to be really specific about the quote and tell it not to make up a quote. So again, be specific. All right. So Gen AI helped you to write a summary. What next? Share it, distribute it widely, send it to your institutional PR or communications office, promote it online, have GPT further reduce it to a smaller snippet for LinkedIn or for Blue Sky. And then a lot of publishers actually give you the ability to publish a layperson abstract with the article, which actually helps improve SEO, which I know I just said SEO is dead, but this is still something that Google search engines prioritize journal articles that have layperson language on them. And so that is a reason to pay attention. Oh, search engine optimization, yeah. Yeah, so if the journal gives you an option to actually publish a layperson summary, do that. It's worth it. Okay, I'm winding up. We're almost back on track to our 2 o'clock start. Yeah.
So I know how we're not supposed to use Gen AI for like paper, like manuscript writing,
Yeah.
but is it okay for Gen AI to write summaries in these situations? And how would you like, should you cite it? How would you cite it? And how would you like give credit to like Gen AI in this case?
Yeah, so nobody's judging the originality of a press release. There's no text detection technique out there for that. So, and nobody's checking. So I think it's fine. I think it's a fine shortcut, especially if you are reading through it and you are making changes. I would never ask it to summarize your work and then just send it without reading through it. So you're going to find errors, you're going to find things that's oversimplified. So once you've gone through and put your human edit on it, for this purpose, for sharing your research, I don't see that there's an ethical problem with it.
So on media and also on journals, so journals also are okay with having these summaries written by Gen AI, or?
I would disclose it. I know a lot of journals are actually starting to create these layperson summaries with Gen AI for authors. So that's something that's right around the corner for us. It'll generate a layperson abstract, and then the author will be able to read through it and say, make this change, otherwise I approve. So yeah, as long as everyone's clear this was generated by AI, a human has looked at it, then it's okay. Yeah. Okay. So I've got 2 slides left. The next one, I've been pretty pro AI in this talk, I would say. We're gonna get a little dark for just a minute. So there are some very real concerns about the future of science and scholarly publishing due to the emergence of generative AI. So I asked Copilot to give me the most extreme dystopian version of the future in 5 years. To forecast that scholarly publishing vision of the future if things go south because of generative AI. And this is what it had to say. And a lot of this rings true. The first thing it pointed to is the collapse of peer review. So AI-generated research papers flood journals. Yes, we are already seeing that happen. They can be indistinguishable from human-authored work, but might contain fabricated data, hallucinated citations, or subtly manipulated conclusions. So peer reviewers who are already stretched thin can't keep up. So then journals begin using AI to review AI-generated papers, creating this recursive loop of synthetic validation. So in that case, the result would be that the trust in peer-reviewed literature erodes or collapses, and retractions skyrocket. Institutions and funders begin to question the value of traditional journals. Next, the rise of paper mills. I've talked a lot about that. Low-cost AI tools really enable the mass production of fake research. That is absolutely already happening. So big paper mills churn out thousands of papers monthly under fake or stolen identities, and these papers are then optimized for citation metrics and not for scientific merit. The result being that citation inflation distorts impact factors, like we talked about. They end up being gamed, and legitimate researchers struggle to get their work noticed. Academic hiring and funding decisions become increasingly gamified. Again, we're already seeing this happening. Then there's the death of the journal brand. This is the part that keeps me up at night a little bit, that these AI-powered discovery tools are so robust and so helpful that at some point in the near future, you would not ever need to go to my journal's website because you can find it all in consensus or illicit. And in that case, readers consume articles via these personalized feeds. They're not even really aware of the journal that they're pulling it from. They don't really care. And the result is that the journal becomes invisible. And so prestige shifts from the journal to the platform, like illicit or consensus. And publishers lose leverage over distribution. Libraries no longer want to subscribe. Authors no longer want to pay publication fees. And we end up with an economic collapse of the publishing system. Okay. Next, AI as an author, editor, and publisher. So in this scenario, AI systems evolved to handle the entire publishing pipeline. The writing, reviewing, editing, typesetting, dissemination, all of it can be done by AI. Human editors end up being sidelined. Some publishers end up embracing this reality just to cut cost. Others are forced to follow just to stay competitive. And in the result here is that editorial judgment ends up being replaced by algorithmic optimization, which for obvious reasons is real bad for science. Nuance, ethics, context are all sacrificed. And knowledge can become a black box. That is a real concern. So as AI-generated research proliferates, it does become harder to trace the origin of ideas. Citations point to other AI-generated works, forming an echo chamber of synthetic knowledge, and human understanding is no longer the foundation of scientific progress. So the result is that the scholarly record becomes opaque, and future researchers can struggle to distinguish foundational insights from AI noise. And then finally, regulatory, why does that keep happening? Okay, regulatory and ethical chaos. So in this scenario, without any sort of global standards to regulate how and when people are allowed to use AI tools, publishers start to face lawsuits over AI plagiarism and data misuse and biased algorithms. And then some governments end up banning AI-generated research and others start to mandate it. And then you end up with this fragmented industry along geopolitical lines, with the result being that cross-border collaboration could become really difficult. So researchers would have to navigate this patchwork of conflicting rules. So I'm curious how inevitable this feels to all of you, this dystopian vision. Yeah.
I haven't thought about it as much in the context of academic writing until, because I just felt like at this point it's not smart enough to really, have that high level writing. But I've been seeing it a lot on like social media. We actually just watched an AI video yesterday on her phone. And I think what I'm more sad about is seeing like creativity going away and like people not creating original art and people not even creating their own original social media content. Their captions are AI generated, like everything's AI generated, and we're just in that consumption loop. And to me, that's just sad.
Yeah.
So I mean, I've been hating that part of it, but this is definitely like a little bit more scary in the sense of like our field and scientific research. So yeah, it's definitely scary. But I was thinking of more of like my day-to-day life and what I interact with on social media and the stuff my grandparents and parents send me over social media. And I'm like, oh, this is the reality that we live in now.
Yeah.
It's only getting better.
Yeah.
It's harder to tell what's not.
Really. Yeah, it's really true. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's interesting, like, I think a lot of any of like the kind of regulations we would have against like some of this happening would have to come from the government, but the government doesn't really know anything about AI.
Right.
And so it becomes like very complex to like have these conversations. I think what the recent bill that was passed, originally they tried to get it passed so that no regulations could be put on AI over like the next 10 years or something ridiculous. And they actually cut it from the bill like last minute. And I think like what I find interesting generally about like even without AI, like the idea of, I think for me, the issue with AI and like these kind of black boxes is like, we can't see where the biases come from.
Yeah.
And like, I think when I look at a paper that's written right now by people, I can to an extent, based on where they're from, like what they're studying, what their focus is on, who's funding them, kind of judge where the bias is from. Though if we start having like publishers and editors and writers that are all AI based, I have no idea what bias has been inputted into them. And so I think that is like kind of where my, I think like that would erode the trust in peer reviewed literature because you have no idea what the like impetus for writing it in this particular way and reaching this particular conclusion was. So I think like that concern is there. And I think like it's interesting, like this isn't something that's very well known, but like it is known, well, very, very well known, but like in Dune, like the science fiction novel, all AI has just been like banned in this world. And it's probably likely because of this kind of like problem that happened where essentially like it became uncontrolled and
It became a synthetic loop.
Yeah. And so I think like there we have to have some level of like we have to have these like we have to have very strict limits about where it's used. And I think to an extent, like its proliferation and the capital that's driving its proliferation has had no like real limits placed on it. And I think that's like the biggest problem we're facing, where it is entirely profit motivated, and we need to have some consideration of like what it's doing to society
Yeah.
and what it's doing to our very important literature and like scientific advancements.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there are some there are pieces of this that feel very real to me. So yeah, well, let's talk about the utopia, because I don't want to end on that note. Because there are some really great things that are coming out of this this new third transformation. So one is that AI can be a guardian of integrity. So in this scenario, AI tools become more adept at detecting plagiarism and data fabrication, image manipulation, citation fraud. We're already seeing that. Tools are improving in that regard. We're catching a lot more bad science, but so that and stopping it from being published. So that reduces retractions and can ultimately boost trust in literature. So in this case, the scholarly record becomes more reliable than ever, and publishers can be seen as stewards of scientific truth. Also, hyper-personalized discovery. This is absolutely happening, right? AI curates research feeds that are tailored to a person's specific interests and career stage and learning style. It can summarize papers and highlight key findings, suggest interdisciplinary connections. And the result is that researchers spend less time searching and more time thinking, and so serendipitous discoveries can flourish. So let's hope. Also, I think this is maybe one of the best things, the inclusive and accessible publishing. Language models translate papers into multiple languages. They can simplify complex language and jargon for broader audiences. They provide voice interfaces and summaries to make it accessible to people with disabilities and to people who are non-specialists. So scholarly communication can become truly global and inclusive, and the public gains a deeper understanding of science. That's a great outcome. AI augmented peer review. So we've talked about the difficulty in finding reviewers, and AI can and will become very good at helping reviewers by checking statistics, verifying references, flagging inconsistencies in the paper, things that are actually hard for humans to detect, freeing human reviewers to focus more on conceptual rigor and ethical nuance in work. So peer review in this case would become faster, fairer, and hopefully more constructive. And maybe reviewer fatigue could decline if people embrace AI review tools as a supplement to human review. I want to be clear that I'm not talking about replacing human review. And then the idea of, I've switched these two around, but ethical AI governance. So in this scenario, publishers, researchers, technologists co-develop transparent AI policies, like we were just talking about. Open source models and audit trails can help ensure accountability. AI literacy becomes a core part of research training. And the result is that AI is used responsibly and equitably, and trust in publishing grows. And then finally, the last thing is this idea of living, evolving publications. This is maybe the most transformative idea in publishing. Publishing historically has been you put out a paper and then that's done. And then it doesn't evolve until you put out another paper, and then that's the next iteration of that research. I think we're approaching an era where knowledge becomes more dynamic, knowledge sharing becomes more dynamic. Articles become dynamic objects that are updated with new data, linked to replication studies, enriched with community commentary, and AI helps to maintain all these documents and alerts readers to significant changes. So I think we'll see a lot of change in the nature of what is a scholarly publication in the near future. So the result being that knowledge is no longer frozen in time at the point of publication. So that's the utopia. Does any of that ring true? Is like, yeah, we're probably headed in that direction. I think, the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. Pieces of the dystopia probably feel a little bit more true to me than the utopia, unfortunately. I think that does have some of these, good things going for it. But yeah, the future is probably going to land somewhere between the two. Time will tell. The next couple of years are going to be transformative, I think.
And I think you missed like the environmental impacts. That's something that's been
Yeah, for sure.
And
Yeah.
if there's more and more reliance on it, that's only going to get worse.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I do think there's like, there needs to be a conversation now about like what AI is like genuinely useful for, that like a Google search could do.
Right,
And I think like that is where
Yep.
there's like a gap there.
right.
I also like, I think there is like a concern about like, if you're just using AI for everything, like how does it affect the way you think or how
Yeah.
you are to think?
Uh-huh.
And like,
Yeah.
yeah, I think like I reached this point where I was like, okay, I'm actually using AI to code too much. Like I need to like actually do it on myself, like to like make sure I know how to do it.
Yeah.
And I think like the inclusivity and like language barriers, I think it's very useful. But like there are other things to think about when we allow things like this that to an extent look like thinking, how much we allow it to our everyday
Yeah.
lives.
Yeah. Yes. Speaking to the environmental impact, you probably all heard the stat that every time you say thank you, it's the equivalent of a bottle of water in resources. Every time you say thank you to a chat bot, which I totally do, you know, like if AI is going to be in charge in 5 years, I want it to know that I was nice to it. But yeah, it's a waste of resources. So when do you really need to use those resources and when not? And that's when some ethical training in the topic comes into play. Yeah. Yeah, that is what I have to say on that topic, but let's talk to you more if you have questions.